Hello everyone! Welcome back to Scylla's Podcats, or welcome to Scylla's Podcats, and welcome to another laid-back video of it is the end of the year, but I did want to still film a few videos. I think I have 3 more to do, including this one, that I want to do. Okay, so, let's talk. I sound very grave when I say this. I don't mean it that way. I'm just very tired. But let's talk about TBR goals, and specifically how I did with the physical TBR goals I set myself for this year, and how I want to keep going forward. So first and foremost, I have my handy-dandy bit of notes, so if I'm looking down, I'm looking at these ones. But essentially, I set out this year telling myself that I had one very particular physical TBR reading goal, which is I wanted to read more books than I was going to haul or going to buy for myself or going to receive as presents. So I counted all of my physical TBR books in March, around I think the middle of March if I remember correctly. March 10, apparently, that's what my notebook says. So I counted all of my physical TBR books on March 10. I included a lot of non-fiction, which may or may not have been a mistake. You know, we'll talk about that at some point, not today. And I told myself that after March 10 I was going to make a list, which I did. It looks like a war zone. I was going to make a list of every single book that I was going to buy, receive otherwise for free, or just, you know, add to the physical TBR pie in whichever capacity, and I was going to count everything out, including the books obviously that I read after March 10 off my physical TBR, and I was going to tally everything at the end of the year, and the general goal was to see negative movement. I told myself it didn't matter how much negative movement, but I wanted to see negative movement because I have a lot of books, physically, because I counted 204 unread books on March 10, and I know for a fact that I've read more than half of the books I own. I'm pretty sure I'm about at like a round off 2/3 read of the books I own, so you can guess how many books I have, because I don't know. I haven't counted them in ages, and I'm quite scared to do so now, so I'm not gonna do that, but suffice it to say I'll have a lot of books, and I'm trying to only possess the books that I really like, aka I would like to get to as many of my physical books as possible without having a massive backlog of books that I really don't want to get to. And so I documented everything, and I can say with confidence, because there's no way I can mess this up unless a whole lot of people send me books for Christmas, which I don't think that many are going to do that. But I can say with confidence, we have managed the negative movement goal. Let's break it down a little bit, shall we? So, as I said, I counted 204 books on March 10. Of those 204 books, I DNF'd or unhauled, unread, a total of 8 books. Because I was sick of them, or because I just really didn't like them when I tried them. Whatever the reason, I unhauled them without fully reading them. Of the ones that I read off of this list of 204 books, we have a wonderful number, and I'm gonna have to count in my head, give me a second. 30, 40, 52, which brings us to a total of 60 books gone from the TBR. If I can count, that is. That sounds about right. So, wonderful. We love that. Now on to the books that I bought or received as presents, some of which I received as presents. After March 10, I counted a total of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 61, which you would think, you know, that means positive movement, right? It does not, because as you can see here with the nice, beautiful system I made for myself, I did in fact read a whole bunch of these after I hauled them, after I bought them for myself or received them as presents, and we're going to count them together now. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37 of those 61 books that I've hauled for myself, which means that I have a total of, very quick math, 24 books that I've added to my TBR. adding that off of the 60 that I read or DNF'd unhauled in some capacity, we are at a negative movement of 36 books. This might not sound, this might sound like a whole lot to some people. It is not that much in the grand scheme of things with the numbers, but I'm still super proud of it because I have achieved my goal, and that is what we're here for. So, considering this is not exactly the end of the year yet, and the people who know me know that I read very fast, here are a few more books that I'm currently in the middle of, or that I would love to get to before the year ends. So I am right now about 60 pages off of the end of Daughter of Red Winter by Ed McDonald. This is the first book in a trilogy, and I'm having a great time with it. I'm really looking forward to how this is going to end, and I'm definitely buying the rest of the books next year. So this would be added off of the 204 books that I counted. And I am one story away from finishing Margaret Cavendish, The Blazing World and Other Writings. I have The Blazing World left, to be precise. It is the longest part of this book. It is about half of the book. I have a bit more than 100 pages left in this. And this is from 1666, so it's a bit harder to understand than fantasy from the 20s, the 2020s. So I do anticipate taking more time with this, but I really want to finish this year still because I don't want to drag it into next year, even though I could also pause it because Storygraph has now added their pause feature, which I'm very excited for. So these would be 2 more books off of my physical TBR, specifically of the 204 that I counted before March 10. And because it is December, it is winter, you know, we love a winter read, I have dragged another potential off my shelf because I'm feeling the winter vibes from this one, because it is called The Winter Garden by Alexandra Bell. I got this as a birthday present, I think, like a year ago, or maybe 2, I don't remember at this point. It is very pretty. It is rather thick. It has, let's just do a little bit of a peek, shall we? It has a little bit over 500 pages, so there is a chance that I'm not going to be able to finish this, so this is a solid maybe. But if I can do that, I will be deleting 3 more books off my TBR, which would be lovely. And that means I would be at a negative movement of minus 39, unless I'm getting a whole lot of books for Christmas, in which case I might consider counting them for the TBR for next year. Listen, there's no rules to TBRs, okay? Well, that's the most important part of this. Now going forward into 2025, I do want to stick to the plan. So the big reading plan, because I'm not going to go over every single like reading challenge I want to do for myself, I think I'm gonna start doing that in January, because right now I'm still a bit stressed. I had to finish a paper for uni, and I have work now, which is 20 hours a week, and I'm not yet used to it, so we are a bit stressed, so I'm not going to be thinking about reading challenges specifically, but the big goal of my physical TBR for next year is still going to be negative movement. So even though I now have a job and I can earn more money, I would like to only buy, well, not to only buy, but to buy less books than I read in total of my physical TBR, or remove in total of my physical TBR. Removing also counts, okay? I'm glad we're on the same page here. So that is still the overall goal that I want to take into next year, but I have thought about an additional challenge to myself, which has to do with ebooks. Partially with owned ebooks, because I do still have quite a lot of those, so I would like to cut down on that as well. I think I'm currently at around 113 unread ebooks, give or take, so I would like to go down. This is going to be a somewhat more specific number. I definitely want to go down into double digits, so I want to be under 100 unread ebooks at the end of 2025, no matter how many more books I buy for myself. And I would like to be somewhere in the 70s at the very least. So not just saying to myself, oh, I've gotten to 99, so now I'm good because it's double digits. I would like to go to the 80s or 70s down at the very least. Doesn't matter if it's 79 or 71, but I would like to be around there to feel comfortable. Because while I do think that having a TBR is not in and of itself something bad, I also know myself, and I know that sometimes I get very overwhelmed by big numbers, which is a shame, because then for some reason I just don't read anything. Make that make sense. I certainly can't. So that is the goal for the owned ebook challenge. And on top of that, and we are still going to work everything about this out, right? Like, if I notice that something is stressing me out too much, I'm just going to discard it. But the goal concerns Libby. Now, Libby is a wonderful tool, which is basically an ebook app that lets you put your library card credentials into. And if your library has a license for Libby, if your library has a license specifically often for English language ebooks, they will appear in the Libby app and you will have access to them and you can read all of them or you can listen to all of the audiobooks. Unfortunately, the problem with Libby and myself is very simple. Free books. So I put everything onto my wish list that I could possibly think of. Even things where I'm like, I'm not even that interested, but you know, it looks fancy, it looks fun, a bit whimsical maybe, I could try this, and then I am sitting there with over 300, I'm not joking, over 300 books on my wish list going, when am I ever going to read any of these? Right, so here's the goal. I would like to work on my Libby wish list pile every month. And the idea that I have for myself right now is every month I want to roll a d6, and whichever number I land on is the number of books I have to remove off my Libby wish list. I specifically say remove because the point of this is not just to read any books between 1 and 6 each month from my Libby wish list. The point is to be a bit more specific about my wish list in general. So if I roll a 6, for example, and I read one book and I remove 5 because I found that I no longer have interest in them, or I no longer want to support the author for whatever reason, or I've tried something else by the author in the meantime and I really didn't like it and so I don't want to necessarily give this a try again, that still means that I've passed the challenge I've set for myself. That's basically how we're going to do this. Because, and I chose 6, I chose a d6 specifically because I thought to myself, 6 books max every month is doable. If I realize that I really can't do it, and I think that if the chance of rolling a 5 or 6 is too stressful, I might scale down to a d4 and see how things are going with that, which would mean a maximum of 4 books that I have to remove through any means from my Libby wish list. I personally think that seems like a doable situation. We will find out. You know, sometimes challenges are just not meant for you. The reason, by the way, that I'm setting myself these challenges, you know, just a very quick explanation, is not to put myself under stress or pressure. It's because, as I said, I get very overwhelmed with numbers, and so when I look onto my shelves and I see like a bunch of titles that I haven't read yet, for some reason my brain jumps straight across the gap of, oh my god, I really want to read these books, which is why I have them in the first place, and goes directly into territory of, we can't read 50 books at once, so obviously we can't make progress, which is very contradictory and counterproductive to everything that we're trying to do when we try to read from our TBR, right? So, giving myself specific numbers or specific parameters to work with, like I want negative movement on my physical TBR, I want to get into double digits, preferably into the 80s on my ebook TBR, and I want to remove X amount of books off my Libby wishlist through whatever means necessary and whatever means possible during every single month of the year, gives me parameters to work with that don't stress me out necessarily. Sometimes they do a little bit, but sometimes we also need a little bit of stress in our life to get our asses off the ground. But mostly they really just provide me with a way of being a bit more intentional with my book purchases and with my book wishes, and also just in general with reading and actually making progress with my reading, because I read a lot, alright? I don't want to do my wrap-up in this video yet, but let's just say I'm over the 200s this year. So I read a lot. For some reason, I still look at a list of books and go, there is absolutely no possible way I could read them, because I can't read them immediately and right now and all at the same time, which is not helpful. So that is basically how I want to structure some of my TBR challenge situations in 2025. Again, I will be joining some specific challenges. I will also be continuing my Reading Around the World challenge, which I haven't really updated you guys on. I'm very sorry about that. I might try and do that more consistently next year, but I do want to continue with that because I still have a bunch of books that I'm really looking forward to, that I really want to get to. So all of that specific stuff is going to come later, because right now I do not have the brain cells to do that, but I have the brain cells to tell myself negative movement on the physical TBR is always good. We do need to read some of the ebooks that we have every once in a while, and maybe we shouldn't get the Libby wish list. We shouldn't let it get too out of control. Maybe, you know? So, anyway, those are my TBR goals for 2025, the non-specific version. Please let me know in the comments down below if you ever do something like this, or if you, for example, have a TBR 0 project, and if so, tell me how it's going, how you anticipate it going in 2025. Also, let me know in the comments down below if you are the type to set yourself TBR challenges in the first place, or if you really don't care about this, because I'm very curious to know. As always, I hope that you'll have a nice reading experience yourself, and that you will keep having a nice reading experience, and I will see you soon.